Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of the Gridiron Glory. Tad and Will here to bring you exciting NFL football action on another episode of the Gridiron Glory podcast. We're here today to talk to you about the New York Jets, who are 2-3, and then on the flip side of that, out of the NFC, they are in fact the only undefeated team in the NFC. The Minnesota Vikings 5-0. Tad Dorsey, as a Vikings fan himself, what is your take on that?
I mean, it is great to see the success coming out of Minnesota. They're a team that did not have very high expectations. A team that some fans were wondering if they would be able to win 5 games for the entire season, and now they've done that in their first 5 games. So, I mean, just a total credit to the coaching,
Right.
for sure. I mean, Kevin O'Connell is a class act coach, one of the better ones in the league, and Brian Flores is, I would argue, the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. I think you could make an argument there. There's plenty of others that deserve mention as well, but I mean, for the team he has, I mean, the Vikings defense is absolutely crazy with the way they play. Holding the New York Jets to 36 rushing yards for the entire game. Intercepting Aaron Rodgers 3 times, and scoring a touchdown with Van Ginkel. A huge play there. The huge play by Stephon Gilmore to get the interception at the end of the game to seal the victory. So the Vikings defense, they're the headline of this team early in the season, and they did plenty enough to force the New York Jets into uncomfortable situations. You have to get a veteran Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball 54 times. I'm sure that's not the recipe that the Jets would have wanted to see. You want to get more balance than 54 pass and 14 runs, but with the way that the Vikings jumped out to the lead, it was difficult for New York to get much of anything going the way they planned on it. So they had to abandon their script like fairly early into the game. So credit there to Flores and the defense. Just a very well played game on that side of the ball. And then on the offense, not the best game for Sam Darnold, but he made some plays when he had to. 14 of 31, 179 yards, no touchdown, one interception, sacked 4 times. So those are numbers. One of not his best numbers on the year. He's been having a great season that did not extend into London, but in the end, he did enough to lead the team to a victory. So that's what you'd expect from Sam Darnold there. And Justin Jefferson, obviously the lead receiver, 6 receptions, 92 yards, though he was targeted 14 times. So the Jets defense, they did a fairly solid job of competing with Justin Jefferson there. You got a really good defensive backfield in New York, led by Sauce Gardner, of course. So just best on best, and that was really exciting to see. So there you have it, the Vikings 5-0.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And I like what you said there, and I was really liking how you were talking about Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold comes in, it's worth noting that Nick Mullins did come in for a play. But nonetheless, Sam Darnold, right, he's that guy that when he got drafted, to New York, right? And then he plays for the Jets, plays for the Panthers. We all saw that, how that kind of panned out and turned out for him. But when you get Sam Darnold into a system where you have a Justin Jefferson, where you have an offensive line, where you have a defense, this is the Sam Darnold that was so hyped up coming out of college. And it's just really awesome to see that he was able to find a system and a piece in a place where he can actually, you know, go through on his full potential as a quarterback. And I mean, I feel like so many people trashed his name and slandered his name and spoke down on his name for several years. And yeah, I mean, you and I both even did it ourselves. We're both guilty of it. Um, but now here he is proving just everybody wrong. That, and I mean, yes, it's only 5 games and it's early. And while this is a exciting start for the Minnesota Vikings, diving into them for a quick second, going forward, it's like, yeah, you guys are 5-0, and kind of analyzing the schedule just a little bit going forward. I mean, yeah, huge divisional game against Detroit. You win that game. I mean, you're in control of your own destiny at that point in the NFC North and in the NFC playoffs. So that would be an amazing win, but you still have to play at the Rams, and that's not going to be an easy feat. The Colts, Jaguars, and Titans and Bears. I honestly could actually see the Vikings winning, and the Cardinals even. I think the Vikings actually might be in for a secretly really good year. Tad. And then, I mean, the Falcons could be a tough game. Yeah, I mean, you got that Bears game at Seattle, versus Green Bay versus the Lions. I mean, but I'm over here as not a Vikings fan saying that you guys are in for a good year. But you are a Vikings fan and know the Vikings and know that even a 5-0 start is nothing. Like, you can never be too sure with the Minnesota Vikings regardless. And and I don't mean that as like a disrespect or anything, but you still have to take it one game at a time.
For sure. And I mean, a lot of Vikings fans remember that the last team that started 5-0 and missed the playoffs was actually in 2016, and it was these very same Minnesota Vikings.
So they're familiar with this. Vikings fans are certainly not holding their
Vikings fans are familiar with this, though it was a completely different situation back then. It was much less sustainable, we feel. So we feel like this team is much more better built than the 2016 team that got off to the big start and then got a lot of injuries. But this year, I mean, we take it one game at a time for sure. I mean, it's tough to win in the NFL. We all know this, but they're off to a good start. And like you mentioned, a huge game against Detroit. You win that game against Detroit, you have a 2-game lead on the entire division, almost effectively a 3-game lead potentially, depending on how the tiebreakers work, because at that point, we would have a win against Detroit in our back pocket. We'd have a win against Green Bay in our back pocket. But yeah, just a lot of things to consider for the Vikings. They're actually on their bye next week, so a good time to rest up before Detroit. But yeah, a lot of positives there.
Oh yeah, my apologies from earlier. That it is. Yeah, the Vikings are on a bye week, so even bigger advantage for the Vikings. You take the bye, you rest up, and then boom, a big game after that against Detroit. So.
Yeah, looking more at the Jets, we saw this game. The effects of this game was unfortunate for their now former head coach, Robert Saleh, who was let go by the team in the wake of the loss. What's your take on the Jets' direction after the removal of?
And I am glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring that up next, because I mean, I did want to, for Minnesota Vikings fans, I really wanted to dive deep into that, talk you guys up, Vikings fans out there, talk up that fan base. But now, yes, let's get into the headline and the story that is Robert Saleh. So I see this story, and I'm, Jets fans. I would really like to get your take and your feedback on this. So yeah, like Robert Saleh, a lot of pressure put on him, right? And obviously you had a lot of things that weren't necessarily 100% his fault, with, the offensive line, like last season, the injury to Aaron Rodgers. But, still it's nonetheless, you're trying to compete for the playoffs. You're trying to make a playoff push here. I mean, it's like kind of a questionable fire a little bit in my opinion, but I also understand it, and who they're gonna upgrade and hire to the next head coach is a lot to wonder still. Unless you have any intel on that, Tad.
Yeah, I know. In the interim, it's Jeff Ulbrich, the former linebacker out of the beautiful University of Hawaii, that's taking over in the interim, and then moving forward, obviously they'll do a full coaching search. I would imagine in the off season. So a lot of questions there about the direction of the New York Jets and what they do moving forward. Obviously you have Aaron Rodgers, the aging quarterback. He's not going to be there long term. I mean, it's a year by year thing with Aaron Rodgers for how long he's going to play at this point. So at this point, you just got to ask a lot of questions about where the New York Jets are going to go moving forward. What kind of football team they want to be. Obviously, they have a really good defense led by Sauce Gardner. They have some talent on the offense, guys like Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson, Braylon Allen, and like you said, they've upgraded the offensive line. But a lot of questions about what direction they want to go. Are they going to look to add a quarterback to start in the future? A lot of questions there about what the New York Jets can do next. But this year, I mean, we'll see if they can rally around their new interim head coach and if they can still try to make a run at the playoffs this year. But we'll see what we get. There's a lot of talent on this team, and it's going to be tough to compete in the AFC. It's a very loaded AFC, but I'd imagine just try to keep Rodgers healthy and then just see if they can compete for, at the very least, a wild card spot.
I mean, let's get one thing straight. When Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I mean, he is the offensive coordinator. Okay, the actual offensive coordinator. I mean, he's like, I don't know, he's Rodgers' backup play caller. You know what I mean? He gives Rodgers suggestions. I mean, like that's kind of like the whole thing with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. Like whatever the offensive coordinator says is like kind of just really more of a suggestion. So as long as Aaron Rodgers is able to go out there and still be a veteran leader on that offense. And then, I mean, you have a top level elite. I mean, the players themselves are very talented, but can they get managed right? Can they get coached right? That's going to be the biggest question mark going forward. I do think that this could be a team capable of making the playoffs, but who their coach is going to be the next biggest question mark there. For Robert Saleh, do you feel like this is the end of the road for him in the NFL, or do you think he perhaps maybe finds like a coordinator position or something like that? Or even Dave can obviously, like, you feel the Panthers are probably going to be a little patient with Dave Canales there. But still, I feel like Saleh could certainly find another vacancy somewhere in the league.
You'd have to think, he's not done. I mean, he'll try to figure out what's next.
Right. I mean, there could be other dynamics and factors that go into that we don't even know. Like, I mean, for all we know, maybe he didn't get along with the GM too well. Maybe you never know what goes on in those locker rooms and in those facilities.
There's a lot of question marks. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of question marks.
It's just like I thought he was doing a. I mean, yeah, you get that loss in London, but you still compete. I mean, I just kind of felt like it was a little too early in the season. And I felt like, hey, maybe give him a few more games. I don't know. Just kind of a head scratcher of a fire here. I mean, most fires, I mean, we covered, back, our time of like in the Blog Talk days and doing this, I mean, this is like our first official fire of the season. So it won't be our last. There's definitely going to be, there's coaches that get fired every single year. So This is our first official fire of the year. It's a head scratcher of one, and it's an early one. And I just don't think that it was. I don't know. Like I said, I just think there must have been something going on within the dynamics of the facilities and in the locker rooms or in the offices. Some very behind the scenes stuff that we just don't know about.
For sure. And I know Aaron Rodgers, he says that he obviously had nothing to do with the firing. But I
Right.
mean, the
They got
question
along.
remains. The, that's kind of questionable. Like, I mean, did they get along? That's something that I mean,
That
they
and
say
I mean, yeah,
they
right.
say all the right things. Like Aaron Rodgers is when he's like in public and like making his statements and stuff, he's respectful. But I mean, there's been some moments of tension between the two, and you have to question if that had anything to do with it. Maybe not directly, but like I'd have to wonder if that was a factor.
Right. Absolutely. No doubt, no doubt about it there. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just over here like wondering. I mean, all I can think of is that it had to have been an interpersonal relationship that we just
Yeah.
don't know about. But there you have it. Jets, Vikings. Vikings 5-0. Jets just fired Robert Saleh. Stay tuned. It's the Gridiron Glory. Like, subscribe, follow Jets, Vikings fans, NFL fans, sports fans. Let us know what you think. And yeah, be sure to stay tuned for another great episode of the Gridiron Glory.